Hello, and welcome to the Argyle CIO Leadership Forum. My name is Nick with Argyle, and it's great to have everyone joining us today. A couple of notes before I turn things over to our esteemed speaker. First, a quick reminder to stop by our sponsors' virtual booths at any time during today's event and for the following week. Our partners are committed to providing you with valuable content and a great overall experience. At any time during today's event, you can visit their virtual booths from the main agenda page, which include complimentary materials, information, and meet and greet opportunities. To ask questions throughout the session, simply type into the Q&A chat, and we will address your questions at the end of the session. Now, without further delay, I would like to introduce our speaker, Partha Chakraborty, Head of Enterprise Security Architecture, Engineering, and Innovation, Humana. We are excited to have Partha with us for a keynote presentation titled Generative AI, Risks and Rewards. Welcome, Partha. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Nick, and good afternoon. Hello, everyone. I hope the day is going really great with the lineup of speakers and the panels I have seen. It is really exciting and great, very relevant topics are being discussed. So I will go real quick, a little bit of agenda that I'm planning to cover in next 30 minutes. Like there will be a little real quick about me and my background and why I'm here and what I'm talking about. Then we will go a little bit deeper on the fundamentals of generative AI. It has come up like a tsunami. There is hardly any LinkedIn post or any news article which does not have this word generative AI. So we will try to do a little bit of digging into what's different between AI in general and generative AI. Then I plan on covering some of the use cases which are being discussed like everywhere right now, so which is very interesting. There are a lot of things can be done where generative AI can help us actually bring in a lot of efficiency in our day-to-day work. There are also risks associated with it, right? And what are those risks? And what should be the mitigating strategies? And we will also cover, is there any compliance like in US or Europe or in any other geographies coming up to have some sort of a governance and control over the generative AI usage? And then we will open it up for Q&A. So that's the agenda I planned for a 30-minute session. And real quick about me, Partha Chakraborty. I have been in technology industry for 25 years. Most of my career I spent in Wall Street companies, started with Merrill Lynch, Bank of America, JP, and Bank of Montreal and all. This is my first experience for a healthcare as well as health insurance company, Humana. And the journey has been great so far. I also sit in Cloud Security Alliance, and I'm the chair for their key management work group. And we are very soon coming up with 2 publications, and anybody interested can connect me with LinkedIn. There are a lot of opportunities. Somebody can review and provide feedback of our artifacts that we are coming up with. So that's about me. Let's jump quickly into what is generative AI and why do we need to care about it? We all hear those things every time, like in every marketing presentation, Google, Microsoft, there is hardly any company, Oracle. Everybody is coming up that we are going down the track of like generative AI, and these are the upcoming features and functionalities that we're going to release. So when I first heard this terminology, like not this year back, like when it was in the discussions, the first question came in my mind is that I am from a cybersecurity background, like I am responsible for security architecture, engineering, and innovation. There is hardly any security tool in today's environment that does not have these 2 words, machine learning and artificial intelligence. How deeply they use it, or whether it's a grossly used marketing term, that's under debate. But undoubtedly, where there is no debate is that there are a lot of benefit of artificial intelligence, and we all accepted it. A lot of applications have come up, made our lives easier, right? When I look at my security background as a security defender, AI is kind of the tool that we leverage all the time. And at the same time, generative AI came in. So it is imperative to understand what is the difference between a regular AI and generative AI. And I thought that without going into the details of how it is constructed, how it is architected, feedback mechanism, deep learning, neural network, there are so many concepts we all have time to go over and in our leisure time to do read and research. But it will be very good to highly summarize and give a metaphor of AI-based applications and generative AI. So regular AI is basically simulating our human intelligence, right? So when we place a picture in front of in front of a computer which has that AI intelligence, and if we ask it to identify, hey, what this picture is and what action needs to be taken, it goes through the pattern, the algorithm, the learning data behind it to figure it out whether it's a horse or a cow, right? Because looking at the picture, we as human, we have the intelligence to figure it out looking at the picture what it is, but how do you tell it to the computer to generate a human like intelligence so that it can differentiate and do some decisioning, right, on that on that problem statement. So AI in general is simulating human intelligence used for mostly decision making and perform like specific tasks where you have the predefined like rules. I mean, this is what you need to do. And generative AI on the other side is more creative side of the AI. As the name suggests, generative AI, generation comes in the beginning. That means it is able to generate something based on the learning and the data patterns that is basically the model is enriched with. It can generate the content which are not following the predefined rules or pattern. It can go above and beyond. It can generate pretty much anything. It can create music. It can create an image. It can write a code. It can do like many things where you did not specifically define something that based on these rules, you'll be creating this type of a content. It has the intelligence to create something on the fly based on the knowledge and the information and the data and the pattern and the learning it has. A simple metaphor, though it is not 100% related, but pretty close. If you go to a restaurant and if you look at the job and the life of a chef, chef is well trained, well learned, knows about tons of cuisine, ingredients, and how to make it and all those stuff. And there's a menu option. There are some predefined guardrails here, right? I mean, these are the things you can actually get. If you go to a restaurant which sells Asian foods, right, then obviously you're going to get Asian food, right? It is not going to get you something else, right? Maybe a Mediterranean or something. That's not the restaurant. That's not defined in the menu. And the chef there knows those ingredients and make the right decisions on the time and make all those judgments to create a menu and serve you food, which is listed in the menu item. If I can compare that thing with a generative AI, where as opposed to a chef, you have someone who is sort of a culinary artist, right? Where it's not necessary that he or she will go by the rule book only, whatever is defined. It's an Asian cuisine. You can only produce Asian food or a Mediterranean or an American or European, whatever, right? It's not defined by those rules and patterns. You can create custom fusion, very creative items, very creative menu, right? Which does not come from any particular cuisine or defined in a rule book. So creation of that content on the fly, that can be done by a culinary artist. So again, as I said, it's not 100% like a clear example or a metaphor, but pretty close. AI with defined rules and patterns using human-like intelligence incorporated in machine, used mostly in decisioning, and those decisions can build something which can incorporate or in your day-to-day work and increase efficiency. There are many tools which are built leveraging AI. Generative AI, on the other side, is more creative side of it. It can create content on the fly, which can also serve the same purpose. At the end of the day, improve efficiency, make our life easier, how we can tap on that technology. But this is more on generating something new on the fly, which comes out of that generative AI domain. So hopefully it gives a very high level idea about some of the basic differences between AI and Gen AI, and why we should be, why the entire world is running after generative AI. What are the world of possibilities because of the creative side and the creative aspect of it, that it can generate literally anything on the fly. Okay, so sorry about the sensitivity challenges with my laptop's keypad, but what are the use cases? Why do we care? I think many of us are very much aware of so many use cases that are coming up of generative AI, right? When it comes to enterprise AI, writing a technical artifact, generating that content, right? The technical writers right now, what people are doing it, you can augment that, right? That can be one of the use case. If you train it properly, load the data and give it information and let it do its job, then generative AI can write a lot of content. Chatbots and virtual assistants existed in the past, but there were like defined information you feed in that, okay, it can provide you that information only. When you use the regular machine's intelligence and the AI functionality, with generative AI, it can go even more creative and can pretty much answer many of the things where it has the backend information. It can, for an insurance company, traditionally you ask ChatGI to provide answer of what about your premium, what about your term, what about your the savings opportunities like over the period of time, right? If you're a loyal customer and all those stuff. If you go anything beyond that to create a custom content, right, based on this, that's not the regular AI backed chatbots can provide. Where if you have a generative AI backed chatbot or virtual assistant, it can go pretty much any limit and mix and match the content and the combination to any extent where those kind of things were not answered. And you typically need a human to create something for you that can be done by generative AI. Code generation is the bigger thing, right? We are talking about where the developers are writing codes and all. Generative AI can ease up their life where you're trying to solve a particular microservices, a particular granular or modular problem, and you can tap into generative AI and it can actually provide you the code snippet you can use in your program. There are some concerns and we'll talk about it, and you need to provide some of the guardrails, right? Natural language, testing, synthetic data, those are like all the IT use cases, and there are a ton, right? So it is literally the sky is the limit. The more creative you can be in solving a problem and defining a problem, the more value you will be coming, you will be getting out of the generative AI backed tools. Especially for people like us who come from the cyber world, enterprise cyber, it's in the news, right? Many organizations taken a stand to actually block access to some of the very popular generative AI tools like Bird or OpenAI or ChatGPT. And there are many big companies, Samsung, Apple, they're in the news. Because generative AI can be used by both sides of the people, right? The people on the good side of the fence are the defenders like us. People are sitting on the other side. They are trying to break it. They both can use. It came up in the news and it is in the public, all those articles that cyber like attackers are using generative AI to even augment and automate their functionality. They can try to do like a reconnaissance of your network to injecting something bad, creating something destructive, all can be done with generative AI. At the same time, there are a lot of good use cases that cyber defenders can use to use generative AI on their side of the equation. Threat intelligence, custom threat intelligence, right? Something predictive way of, oh, something can go bad based on my parameters and threats and vulnerabilities we have right now. Previously, we could not predict something. Now, probably there is a possibility based on the data set, we should be able to predict even what can happen next and how I can address those things. Threats detection, anything, anomaly, fraud. So there are tons of it. Architecture artifacts, right? If you are producing, say, a reference architecture blueprint, traditionally you hire a bunch of architects and they take time to create some of those artifacts, and those can be automated using generative AI, right? It can provide the consultation when a developer needs to consult a security person. Hey, should I use pattern A or pattern B? It can find it out from generative AI. Validation and assurance, right? Whenever you are trying to ensure whatever you build, whether it is adopted properly or not, whether it is working properly or not in your environment or not, those can be done, and an easy generative AI use case that can be explored. In everyday life, starting from your banking assistant to creating music, writing poetry for fun activity, or even doing something which increases the efficiency of the activities we do, enhances the quality of life, lowers the repetitive activities to bring in efficiency. Everything can be done pretty much. Again, as I said, generative AI is a huge has a huge possibility. It's up to how creative we are, what is our risk appetite, what kind of guardrails we can put in to effectively and efficiently utilize it to solve many of our problems that we struggle to do with classic existing tools. These are some of the examples. I'm sure you may all have many, and it will just keep on increasing. The more days will come, more use cases will come, more ideas will come up, and eventually we will be just keeping just enhancing those use cases of generative AI. Okay, so let's take a different perspective, which is let's go over the risks, right? And when generative AI came up, there were a lot of articles published. Samsung had sort of a data breach where, along with like generative AI usage, a lot of the important information about factory defects, right, or their roadmap or sensitive information got leaked out. Like, and they basically came up with something. They were the, I think, one of the very first ones. Like the major companies said that, okay, we are, if not blocking, I think they were restricting access for the employees. Previously, they thought that it will use to generate core snippet and, you know, just tap onto that efficiency bandwagon and just move on fast as much as you can. But after that incident, they took a reversal of their position. And that became an example for many organizations and the security teams. Hey, if Samsung is not doing it, there must be a reason like why they're doing it. So should I be embarking on this journey, or should I take a step back and let's see what others are doing? And many companies took a stand that, hey, it's a novel technology. We don't know much about it. So let's wait and see what the others are doing in the industry, and then we take a step, which is fine, right? There is nothing wrong in that, right? It's not absolutely must that you have to be the first adopter of each and every technology. Though the other side of the equation is also very prevalent, then whether you want to be disrupted, you want to disrupt the industry, or you want to get disrupted, right? That means if there is any innovative technology or things coming up, you just embrace innovation so that you have the first adopters advantage in the market. So two different thoughts, right? There is a group in most of the organization, enterprise organizations, you'll find the development, business, or CIO group, they will be pushing, hey, if we don't adopt AI, generative AI specifically right now, are we going to pay a price? And the price is the missing opportunity, the cost of missing opportunity, right? It's a fair thing. At the same time, security guys are saying, hey, there are a lot of negative things can happen, and the risk probably can outweigh your reward at this point of time. Moreover, there is no detailed analysis from the, say, CIO teams to provide, hey, this is the business case that I'm trying to solve, and this is exactly the value I will be getting out of this use case. So since those values are not clearly articulated, right? Total return on investment and the cost of ownership and all the stuff. If you cannot clearly articulate this thing and just say that it will bring in efficiency, then security guys will also be more concerned, and they will say that unless there is a business value, why should I actually put it in? Let's block it. But if we need to dig a little bit deeper into what are the actual risks, think about two use cases: ChatGPT, OpenAI. You go to chat.openai.com, or maybe the Google Bird, or anything else. You go to that URL. You authenticate yourself. Then you get a chat prompt. And in that chat prompt, you can type pretty much anything, right? You can also come up with say if you're a technology guy and you are designing something with Kubernetes and container and all, right? And you need to translate that thing to your executive leadership team. You don't have much time, like 15 seconds, 20 seconds, you have to tell the story, right? And you are lacking behind the ideas. You can ask ChatGPT or Bird, hey, can you just give me an executive snippet for what are the advantages of running things in Kubernetes? Or you can ask, there are a lot of ways of asking the question. Can you explain Kubernetes to me like the way you will explain to a fifth grader? So, I mean, those are like very simple use cases, useful, right? For executive communication, making sure you're building your marketing pitch. What is the value proposition of your thing? Starting from that to code snippet to how to do it, you can get pretty much everything. What is the concern? The concern is the questions that you are asking to the chat GPT from your organization, if it keeps wide open, are you going to inadvertently leak some information that you're not aware of? Is it possible that you will leak the information? Like, since I come from security, it's very easy to me and natural to talk about security, your security architecture, the type of vendor products you use, the type of controls you use. From a sales and marketing perspective, what is your roadmap, right? I mean, like from a product management of a tech company, what are the roadmaps? What are the features you are coming up with? Are you going to leak those information, which can cost the company a lot by leaking those information? The answer is yes, there are chances. People may do willingly or even unwillingly, inadvertently, they can leak some information. But then the next question comes, how is the risk greater than you're going to Google, searching something? It's not that Google does not know what you do. Google does not save or record what you are doing or your usage pattern and activity. Somebody has eyes into your search patterns. When you are going to Google and you are searching something, why the risk is bigger than doing it in Google versus doing it in ChatGPT or doing it in Bird? The counter to that comes is that when you go to Google, since you don't get that level of detailed custom content generated on the fly, and GPTs can literally give me a pitch that I need to create for my executive presentation on this. It can actually give it to you. So since it is very helpful, the adoption and the market publicity and the craze around it is so much, more and more people will be doing it. So as you have volume, chances of making mistake is higher than doing it in Google. So if your company does not have a very strong web data leakage prevention control, they will be very skeptic of allowing wide scale for generative AI. You must have a very stronger DLP, data leakage and the privacy controls and all. That should be very strong. Otherwise, you will not feel comfortable. That is precisely one of the reasons why many companies took a stand that keep it blocked, open it as an exception, and till the technologies are maturing. The good news is that the vendor products, right, which we use for protecting our enterprise internet connection, like the proxies of the world or data leakage prevention technologies of the world, they are coming up with more and more features and use cases where you can have a very custom generative AI focused DLP rules. They already released a lot of URL categories specific to generative AI, so that you don't have to go and granularly figure it out which URLs to block or selectively open. There are categories they came up with which you can leverage right now. So what is happening is that the security vendor community is realizing the skepticism of the enterprise and the risks. It's not a skepticism, it's driven by some valid risks in the environment as well. And they're coming up and they're actually opening it up and coming up with more newer feature to allow those contents in a secure way. So as time passes, we will get more used to it because we'll have more control of our security controls, confidence on our security controls. Generative AI also comes with another risk of like deep fakes. The information is being fed, you don't know the accuracy of the information, and you don't even know whether it is intentionally any fake or data poisoning is being done, right? So that if somebody queries something, you get an information and intentionally it is misfeeding you, right? Wrong information kind of a thing, right? So that's actually a risk. Intellectual property is another concern. If you're taking a code snippet, what if I can go and figure it out tomorrow that that was piece of my code which was leaked out and that is related to one of my patent. And if I find that you are using it to create an application which generates more revenue to it, that gives me even more reason, if you are my competitor, to actually sue you that, hey, you are infringing my intellectual property. So these are valid concerns, right? Manipulation, impersonation. I mean, I don't have to go over the slide. These are all adversarial attacks which can happen in generative AI. And that is why organizations are taking an approach which is depending on their risk appetite. And gradually, they're opening it up more as they're getting more confident on uh, uh, their security and the control stream. And I know like we are close to like just 5 minutes left, and I want to open it up and address some of the question and answer. They may come my way. Last thing before I jump into the conclusion and Q&A is regulations. That's another thing we have to keep an eye on. All the governments in different countries are actually keeping a tab on generative AI for many reasons, right? So that it's an ethical use. There is no bias or discrimination against any community or anything, right? Gender, age, sex, or anything, right? It cannot provide something. And the third one is data leakage, security, and all those stuff. So European Union, as usual, right? They are very strict on compliance and the governance and the regulation. Like the way they came up with GDPR, they are coming up and reviewing, and we have to keep a tab of those things as an enterprise organization. Like how does it impact us depending on our business? US, all the states right now, many states are looking into it. There is no direct regulation yet. There are some existing regulation, some way it protects and prevents like those kind of concerns, but there is no direct linkage to generative AI. So that's an area we have to keep a tab on. So I know like I eat up like probably 2 more minutes in my Q&A session, but maybe Nicholas, if you can help me out, like what are the questions I may answer?
Sure. We have a few great questions, Partha. Here's one. Biased or inaccurate outputs are a great concern. What are some ways to overcome this?
So that's actually a great question. And again, like the answer is there is no one single bullet point. Every organization, either it is running today or should run some responsive AI program, because otherwise you are subject to penalty and regulation. It happened, I'm not mentioning any healthcare company, it happened against some healthcare companies in the past because some of their algorithms generating insurance information was found to have some bias in that logic, and they had to pay like the penalty as well. One of the best ways is that create a governance council or a responsible AI program, have a review or re-review. There are some automated tools available which can go, and there are experts, right, who look into your code and try to identify bias. Bottom line is that if it is a brownfield where you have already a lot of application, that leverages an AI module that should enable a trigger to review that piece of code just to ensure you cannot be targeted by any bias claims or acquisitions in future. And any net new, whenever it is a greenfield, you are doing your reviews, infrastructure reviews, security review, code review, there should be a process wherever there is an AI or generative AI involved in your code snippet, it should trigger an additional AI ethical usage review by your AI experts. And that way you can handle it manually. There are some automated tools available. I can definitely share later on where it can help to some extent, but eventually there needs to be some human intelligence on top of the machine intelligence just to ensure that is not coded with bias or even fakes or other concerns.
Great. Here's another question. How do you deal with vulnerability in a resilient enterprise using AI?
So that's actually a great question, but it is a loaded question as well. Vulnerabilities, there are a lot of tools which are used to capture the vulnerabilities in our current environment, and those tools are mostly leveraging AI in their backend. So AI is already used. You just name any tool, be it Equalis or be it whatever, you just name any tool. They leverage the backend using AI so that they can do an analytics. On top of it, once you have 3 or 4 tools gathering vulnerability information, and you want to have an enhanced mechanism to scrub through it and create an overarching view of what vulnerabilities exist and what is important to your organization, you can use the generative AI training modules as well to feed that data and eventually create a report for you on the fly, no matter the way you want to slice and dice. You can define, hey, give me all my vulnerabilities, which is critical for my organization, seen in the wild, seen in last 2 days. You can define your criteria the way you want. And the Gen AI, right, if you are using it within your guardrails, within your corporate internal private or public cloud environment with all proper protection, and load your data, and you can scrub and you can use it to generate the reports for you on the fly.
Great. And I think we can squeeze in one more question. Risk management is key. Could you please share best practices?
So yes, risk management is a key. The best practices here is that, first of all, any module, right, where you have AI or generative AI must trigger security and enterprise risk. And security and enterprise risk team also must trigger an AI governance checks, just to ensure like you're free from bias and fakes and other vulnerabilities and things. So you can start that, creating that process and the governance, and then you can leverage many tools to automate that process. There are many activities which are manual in nature, like, for example, a third-party vendor assessment or third-party, fourth-party risk assessments, and a lot of manual reviews. Those can be highly automated, and a lot of efficiency can be gained if we tap on generative AI for solving those problems. But to summarize, the best practice is that create a review process, make sure it is part of your software development lifecycle. Nothing goes without those reviews if it has an AI component, and define the exception criteria, right? If somebody is following some best practices or patterns and all, and there is a written evidence that those are being followed, then you can probably bypass some of the checks as you get comfortable. But to start with, have a rigorous governance process in your SDLC lifecycle and those toll gates to detect all those risks and other concerns.
Great. And thank you again, Partha, for such an incredible keynote. I also want to thank everyone else for joining us today. This session, along with all of today's content, will be available on demand following the event. A special thanks to today's sponsor, Rimini Street. This event would not have been possible without them. This officially concludes the CIO Leadership Forum, Building a Resilient Enterprise. Thank you again for joining us today and engaging in our content. Have a great rest of your day.